In the highlands of Cameroon rests a body of water, deceptively beautiful. Lake Nyos, a crater lake, held a secret deep within its volcanic heart. For generations, its calm surface mirrored the sky, offering no clue to the immense pressure building in its depths. It was a picturesque, peaceful setting. The surrounding villages lived in harmony with the lake, their lives interwoven with its presence, unaware of the potential for a catastrophic event. Deep below, a natural process was underway. Carbon dioxide, seeping from magma, was dissolving into the lake's bottom layers, creating a hidden reservoir. The water acted like a cap on a shaken bottle, holding back an incredible volume of gas under immense pressure, year after year. The air was often heavy, the atmosphere moody, as if the land itself was holding its breath, waiting for an inevitable release. No one suspected that this placid lake was a ticking time bomb, a rare geological phenomenon known as a limnic eruption. The water stratification was key. Colder, denser water at the bottom trapped the gas, while the warmer surface layer acted as a liquid seal. On August 21, 1986, the conditions were perfect for a disaster. The delicate balance was about to be shattered in the most silent way imaginable. The trigger remains debated: a landslide, a cool rain, or even a small tremor, but its effect would be sudden and overwhelming. In the hours before the event, life in Nyos village was proceeding as it always had, dictated by the rhythms of the sun and seasons. Farmers tended to their crops on the fertile volcanic slopes, their silhouettes moving slowly against the backdrop of the verdant hills. Cattle and goats grazed peacefully in the pastures that stretched down towards the valleys, their bells a faint melodic sound in the air. In the village center, people gathered, their conversations and laughter filling the air, a testament to a close-knit and vibrant community. The lake was a source of life, its presence a constant, reassuring feature of their landscape and their cultural identity. The evening meal was being prepared, the smell of wood smoke and cooking food mingling in the cool evening air as dusk began to settle. No premonition, no warning sign in the sky or on the water hinted at the profound change that was about to sweep through their valley. They were a people deeply connected to their land, a land that was, at that very moment, preparing to betray them in a way they could never imagine. As night fell, the village settled into a familiar quiet, the sounds of nature replacing the sounds of the day's activities. It was the last normal night this village would ever know. A deep, unnatural silence was waiting just beyond the horizon. Around 9:30 p.m., a deep rumbling sound was heard by survivors further up the hills. It was not a noise, but a feeling from the earth itself. The trigger had been pulled. The stratified layers of the lake were violently disrupted, and the deep gas-charged water began to rise. The surface of Lake Nyos, once a perfect mirror, began to churn. The water changed color, turning a reddish-brown as sediment was dredged from the bottom. A colossal fountain of water and foam erupted from the lake's center, soaring nearly 300 feet into the night sky. This wasn't an explosion of heat and fire, but of immense pressure released. It was the sound of a planet-sized bottle being uncorked. Birds nesting near the lake took to the air in a panic, their cries lost in the roar of the water and escaping gas. The eruption displaced a huge volume of water, creating a wave over 80 feet high that scoured the immediate shoreline. But the water was not the primary danger. The real threat was invisible, silent, and was just beginning its journey. As the pressure vanished, an estimated 1.2 cubic kilometers of carbon dioxide gas burst from the solution, erupting from the lake. A colossal cloud of gas, initially obscured by the water spray, began to form, a monstrous entity ready to spill over the crater's edge. The cloud, a mixture of carbon dioxide and water vapor, grew to an immense size, blanketing the entire lake in a thick, white shroud. Carbon dioxide is 1.5 times denser than air. This simple fact of physics sealed the fate of the valleys below. Instead of rising and dispersing into the atmosphere, the colossal cloud became a ground-hugging entity, heavy and ponderous. It began to move, not with the speed of wind, but with the slow, inexorable pull of gravity, spilling over the edge of the crater. The cloud was a silent, suffocating river, about 160 feet thick, beginning its descent into the sleeping valleys. It moved at a terrifying speed, estimated at over 12 miles per hour, following the contours of the land. The air in its path was displaced upwards, replaced by a blanket of gas that contained no life-giving oxygen. Any living, breathing creature in its path would be surrounded instantly, the very air around them becoming unbreathable. The cloud was completely silent. There was no roar, no crash, just the eerie quiet of its suffocating advance. It was a phantom menace flowing through the darkness on a direct course for Nyos and other nearby villages. As the cloud reached the first village, it arrived without a sound. The inhabitants, mostly asleep, were completely unaware of its approach. The heavy gas flowed into homes through open doorways and windows, displacing the breathable air within seconds. Fires and hearths were extinguished instantly as the oxygen that fed them was pushed away by the invisible wave of CO2. The sensation for anyone awake would have been sudden dizziness and confusion, followed by a rapid loss of consciousness. Within minutes, a profound silence descended upon the village. The chirping of insects, the rustle of animals, all ceased. The gas, being heavier than air, pooled in the low-lying areas, filling the village from the ground up like water in a bowl. Livestock in the fields, unable to escape to higher ground, were overcome by the oxygen-deprived air and fell silent. Even insects and other small creatures were stilled by the cloud. The entire ecosystem was put on pause. The cloud did not linger. Having filled the valley, it continued its silent journey, flowing onwards to the next settlement. Behind it, the village of Nyos was left in a state of suspended animation, everything looking normal but devoid of all life and sound. The cloud's journey was not over. It continued to flow for nearly 15 miles, a river of invisible peril hugging the ground. It descended upon other, smaller settlements like Kam, Cha, and Subum, repeating the silent, devastating process. A man on a motorcycle, riding home, reportedly felt a sudden warmth and lost consciousness, only to awaken hours later, surrounded by stillness. The only survivors were those on high ground, above the 160-foot deep layer of gas. They looked down on a sea of white fog. They would later report a rotten egg or gunpowder-like smell, which was likely other volcanic gases mixed with the odorless CO2. The cloud was so dense and defined that people on hillsides could see the clear line where the safe air ended and the heavy gas began. As the hours passed, the massive volume of carbon dioxide began to slowly dissipate, mixing with the surrounding atmosphere and becoming harmless. The sun would rise on a scene of unimaginable tragedy, a landscape that looked peaceful and untouched, but was hiding a terrible secret. The quietest disaster in modern history had concluded its active phase. Now, the shocking discovery was about to begin. In the end, over 1,700 people and thousands of cattle had been overcome by the silent cloud from the lake. As dawn broke on August 22nd, the sun illuminated a scene of chilling serenity. The air was clear again, but profoundly silent. No birds sang, no roosters crowed. The familiar sounds of morning village life were completely absent, replaced by an unnerving stillness. A lone survivor, one of the few who had been on high ground, cautiously made his way down towards the village, fearing what he would find. He found a village frozen in time. People were found as they had been the night before, in their homes, along paths, as if they had simply fallen asleep. The most chilling sight was the livestock. Herds of cattle lay motionless in the fields, a silent testament to the gas's reach. There were no signs of a struggle, no destruction to the buildings. It was as if the entire valley had been put to sleep. The lake itself had changed. Its normally deep blue waters were now a dull, rusty red from the churned-up iron at its bottom. The water level had dropped by over a meter, and the vegetation along the immediate shore was flattened and brown. Word began to spread as survivors reached other towns, speaking of a great white cloud and a village that would not wake up. The outside world was about to learn of the bizarre and terrifying power hidden within Lake Nyos, a quiet lake that had become a silent executioner. The first official responders to arrive were met with a scene of profound confusion, a whole village silent with no apparent cause. Initial theories ranged from mysterious illnesses to supernatural events. The lack of physical damage was baffling to everyone on site. Soon, an international team of scientists was dispatched to Cameroon to unravel the mystery of the silent, widespread loss of life. They arrived equipped with gas detectors and sampling equipment, suspecting a geological or chemical cause for the strange event. The reddish color of the lake and the accounts of a low-lying cloud quickly pointed them towards a limnic eruption. Their instruments confirmed it. The deep waters of Lake Nyos were still supersaturated with carbon dioxide, even after the massive release. The evidence was all around them: the flattened vegetation, the still animals, and the accounts from the few survivors on high ground. The puzzle pieces began to fit together, forming a picture of a rare, natural disaster of terrifying efficiency and silence. The world watched in morbid fascination as the scientific community explained how a beautiful lake could release such a silent plume of gas. The investigation at Nyos was not just about understanding the past, it was a race to prevent the future, as the lake was already recharging. So, how does a lake do this? The answer lies in a rare combination of geology and chemistry, creating what scientists call a killer lake. First, the lake must be deep and located in a volcanically active area. Lake Nyos sits in a crater atop a pocket of magma. Carbon dioxide from this magma seeps into the lakebed and dissolves in the cold, dense water at the bottom, just like fizz in a soda can. Crucially, the lake must be thermally stratified. In the tropics, the surface water stays warm and less dense, rarely mixing with the cold bottom layers. This warm layer acts as a lid, trapping the gas-rich water below and allowing it to become supersaturated over decades or centuries. Then comes the trigger, a landslide, a heavy rain cooling the surface, or an earthquake can disrupt the layers. As the gas-rich bottom water is pushed upwards, the pressure on it decreases, causing the dissolved CO2 to violently erupt out of solution. This creates a chain reaction. The eruption of gas pulls more deep water up, causing an unstoppable, massive degassing event. The resulting cloud of CO2, being heavier than air, flows down into valleys, displacing oxygen and creating a lethal, invisible flood. Understanding this process was vital, not just for history, but for ensuring that Lake Nyos could never repeat its silent devastation. In the wake of the disaster, scientists knew they had to act. The lake was already beginning to recharge with carbon dioxide. The solution was an elegant feat of engineering, a degassing pipe, a way to give the lake a permanent, safe release valve. A pipe was sunk to the bottom of the lake. Water was initially pumped up, starting a siphon that would then become self-sustaining. As the deep, gas-rich water rises through the pipe, the decreasing pressure causes the CO2 to bubble out of solution, just like in the eruption. This process drives the water upwards, creating a continuous fountain of water and gas that shoots safely into the air above the lake. This constant, controlled release prevents the dangerous buildup of gas, effectively taming the lake and making the region safe again. The villages were eventually resettled, but the memory of that silent night in 1986 remains a permanent part of their history. Lake Nyos and its sister lake, Manoon, are now monitored continuously, a reminder of the hidden forces that can stir beneath a tranquil surface. It stands as a powerful lesson in the complex and sometimes perilous relationship between humanity and the geologic forces of our planet. A beautiful lake, a silent cloud, and a village caught in between. A story of tragedy, discovery, and ultimately, of human ingenuity.